Good evening, folks, and welcome to the Irn-Cru, an American football podcast made in Scotland by NFL lovers. Wildcard weekend is just around the corner, so it's time for the preview crew. I'm your host, Dan, and joining me tonight are some of the finest crew members and a very special guest. Studs, with the likelihood of the Arrowhead Invitational not happening this year, we decided to extend an invitation to you to join the preview crew tonight. How are you?
Yeah, not bad, mate. Listen, Keith did message me earlier on and asked me to take a knee and bow out today, but after discussing it with some of the other team members, we thought it best that I get involved since I've missed a few already. So, but I'm all good, man, all good.
Well, the Chiefs on the lineup in victory formation much this season, have they?
Don't have to. We've won. The defence has won the game for us, so we don't need to worry about victory formations.
Fresh from celebrating Blair Walsh Day, it's Craig. How are you?
I'm good, mate. I wonder what you were going to bring up there. Yesterday was Blair Walsh Day, and it was Brian's birthday. That was not a highlight of the Vikes' recent history, but good Vikes news today. They're coming back to London. Yes, can't wait. Very excited about that one. So, some good news there.
Yeah, we'll get to that a wee bit later on. We'll go a wee bit of chat on the international series as well.
Happy days.
Our special guest is going to get the usual treatment from what our first time guests always usually get. So, first of all, we'll get Ross. I'm not going to tell you what team he follows, but you can maybe see it. Is that a real shirt or is that a pirate shirt?
No, that's the real one. Look at that badge. That's protruding.
Welcome, Ross. How are you?
I'm not bad. Yourself?
Not too bad. So what we do all first in guest, Ross, is we basically get you a wee minute or so. You basically tell us how you got into the sport first and how you picked your team. So the floor's yours.
I think the first game I ever watched was the Broncos-Seahawks Super Bowl. And I had names. I'm already blanking on names. But I had the first touchdown scorer on. I put £1 on it. I won £6. And I thought, there's something in this. And then I forgot about it for about 5 or 6 years. And then I was at the pub watching Red Zone. This team scored a touchdown. They had a pirate ship in the stadium shooting a cannon. I thought, that's pretty cool. Scored another touchdown. Pirate ship and cannon goes again. I thought, that's the team. I'm going to choose them. Little did I know, probably the worst record for wins and losses in the entire NFL that I chose. But it all worked out in the end. 4 months later, signed Brady, went on to win a Super Bowl. That was good.
Do you not mean that they signed Brady 4 months before that? Is that not what happened?
No. This was December. We signed Brady in the March.
Excellent. No, that's great. I mean, everybody's got an interesting story about how they started following their team, whether it's like myself, it's through my dad, like yourself. Everybody's got an interesting story about how a lot of people always tell us they basically opened up Madden one day into the first team that popped up, so that became their NFL team. So, now welcome. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having me.
To hearing what you've got to say. So, folks, the kick-off question, we better take that theme with this one. So, obviously, this weekend we've got Tyreek's going back to the Arrowhead, much to Studs' delight. We'll see if he's still feeling like that and come Monday night. Matt Stafford obviously going back to Detroit. Is he going to get a friendly welcome? And also something that's not as high profile, but we've got Mick McCarthy against the Packers again. It's another return as well. So tonight's kick-off question is not just NFL or American football related. It's like, what's your favourite sporting return in terms of a player going back to play against his old team or her old team, or manager, coach, or going back to play for their old team? Does that make sense, guys? Yep.
Aye.
Right, Craig, we'll come to yourself first. Who's your favourite return?
I was wondering if you were going to come at me first there, Dan. So I've gone a wee bit off grid here. I've not gone for an American football coach or an American football player. I've gone for a local hero. So I'm going to give a shout out to Hamilton academical legend Jose Kitongo. So good was Jose Kitongo. He didn't come back to Hamilton Accies once. He came back twice. That's how good he was. The Angolan legend himself. So I remember like mid-90s when he first joined Accies, and he was absolutely brilliant, and me and my dad absolutely loved going down to watch him. And he had a Jose Kitongo t-shirt and everything, which was just brilliant. So when he came back, I was delighted. And then when he came back again, couldn't believe it for a third stint. So Giving a wee shout out, a wee bit of local love to Aki's legend there.
It's
Aye,
still
what a
in
legend
the
was he?
area as well. There's still coaches in the area, and I've actually refereed them at over 35s. Seen somebody try and break his legs basically because they couldn't touch him.
Love
His
it.
boy plays in Scotland. Who does his boy play for now? I can't remember the last time who he was playing for.
It was at
Giants.
Queen's Park.
Queen's
Maybe.
Park. He was he's
Aye.
got a few Jaicaton going up.
I've refereed one of these boys as well before at the pro youth level. I think I know a couple of these boys went through the pro youth system. I think Jai's the only one to have made it.
Aye.
To be honest,
He's done really well.
Aye. He's played for a few of the teams. Studs yourself next.
Well, I'm old enough to remember a very, very old one in Mo Johnston. But I'm not going to go there. I'm going to keep it tidy. I mean, I would like to, for the old excuse scarf, to go for Celtic Rangers scarves. So, but I have actually went with an NFL one. And as soon as you gave us this question, this one comes straight into my head. I remember sitting watching Red Zone and actually seeing this incident, and there was a running back, and Brian won't be too happy if I mention this, but it's a former Browns running back, and Isaiah Crowell, who returned to play against the Browns with the New York Jets. He scored 2 touchdowns against them, and after one of his touchdowns, he decided to take the ball, and Kid On was wiping his own backside with it, and then the Jets at the dog pound, I believe. So that one kind of stuck out for me. I'm sure I had him in one of my fantasy teams the year before as well. But Crow going back to the Browns and throwing the fans a ball after wiping his backside with it. It's a particularly interesting game.
So Ross, what about yourself?
The obvious ones, Brady retiring in 2022 for 40 days. What a comeback. But I think my favourite comeback, it's not a team, it's just for a team. It's Tiger Woods' comeback to come and win the Masters in 2019. After the injuries, the car crash, everything that happened, being the best, arguably the best player ever, to then go through all that, to then come back and win the Masters and that back nine. Unbelievable.
Yeah, that's a great shout. I'm going to go completely left field with mine. Many know, maybe don't know, I'm a massive wrestling fan. I always have been, even still now at 38 years old, I still watch it. And I remember growing up, my favourite wrestler was Stone Cold. I absolutely loved him. It was the best going. And then last year, 2 years ago, he made a comeback. He was never wrestling again, and he made a comeback to fight Kevin Owens at WrestleMania. And I was transported back to being a teenager again, watching Stone Cold in a ring. It was unreal. As the phrase goes, I was completely marked out by watching it. It was amazing. Excellent,
awesome.
Guys, good way to get into the
It's an interesting, if you listen to his podcast and that, and I've seen him doing interviews in that particular WrestleMania, he was actually involved both nights. He was meant to, the second night, he was meant to just sit and get a couple of beers with Brock Lesnar, and he got asked to come out in the McAfee and Theory match, and ended up stunning Theory, McAfee, Vince McMahon, and then everybody. And I remember listening to Pat McAfee the next day, and he was rough off the back of a drinking session with Stone Cold and Brock Lesnar.
It was absolutely high as a kite as well, because I remember him saying, like you said, it's two of the most things I've ever wanted in my career, to have a beer with Stone Cold and to receive a stunner, and I got them both of them at the same time. It was absolutely flying, and he was on the roof for about a week afterwards.
No wonder he drinks 2 cans at once, though, Steve Austin, because he like smashes them together and then tries to drink half it, just goes like down the front of him. It's all foamed up and everything.
Brilliant. Before we get into the details of this weekend's games, guys, let's have a quick chat about the international series announced today. Slightly overshadowed, and I don't know if anybody's seen the interaction between Shrags and NFL UK earlier on, where it was announced on Good Morning Britain. Good Morning Football. And it was 4 minutes after Bill Belichick's news was announced, they announced the international games. So it was pretty overshadowed. NFL UK was away in a huff in the corner because Bill Belichick had stole the spotlight from them. But this year was already, as expected, the Jags playing at Wembley. That was pretty much guaranteed. Going to Spurs this year, we've got the Bears and Craig's Vikings. Craig, you excited?
Yes, the Vikings are coming back to London. Well excited, mate. Can't wait. It's been a few years. We were just saying that before we came on. 6 years since the played at Twickenham, which was the last time I saw them. So yeah, really looking forward to hopefully getting back down this year and seeing them again. So it's going to be class. Can't wait. Just need to see who we're playing against. I see it's a home game for us, so see who our road opposition's going to be.
Yeah, it should be interesting. I mean, I had a quick look at the Bears' schedule and the Vikings' schedule, and then threw them in the bin and realised none of them are at home with the Cowboys this year, so I was raging. And also we've got the Panthers going to Germany, which should be quite an interesting one for them. I wonder if they may have a big fan base in Poland because they've got the Wrocław Panthers over there in the EFL, but they've got the exact same logo as the Panthers. I think there must be some sort of link up because there's a team that's the Vienna Vikings or something like that.
Aye, I was going to say the Vienna Vikings are the same. Basically ripped off the Minnesota Vikings.
There must be some sort of tie-up. And the Sao Paulo team's not been announced yet, but got to fancy that'll be somebody like the Cardinals or kind of Southern States country team that will go down there because it tends to be Cardinals went to Mexico, obviously, and stuff like that. But we'll see how that one pans out over the next wee while, and the crew will keep you updated. If you're a fan of any of these teams, drop us a wee message, get in contact, let us know if you'll be going to the games, who you fancy playing, or any experiences you've had with international games in the past. Guys, it's time for the main event. Wildcard weekend is finally here. We've waited 18 weeks of the season. We went through the trauma of ups and downs of the regular season, injuries, big plays, wee plays, disasters, highs and lows. We're now finally at the playoffs. So what we're going to do, folks, tonight, we're not going to get in great detail what we've not picked one game because Wildcard weekend is too important just to focus on one game. So we're going to have an extended version of our usual rest in one session. So we're going to go through all the games, give them a couple of minutes each, what we think of the games, and then we'll come to predictions after that. So first up, we've got the Browns at the Texans. So we've obviously got the old head and Joe Flacco against the new prince and CJ Stroud. Guaranteed nobody predicted that those two would be going head-to-head in the playoffs after the number 2 pick we made last year. Craig, how's this one going to play out?
Well, I think from a Cleveland side, I mean, they've been rejuvenated. You've got to give a massive shout out to Joe Flacco. He's been a revelation at Cleveland. The whole team has just absolutely rallied around him, and this game's just on paper it just looks so tight. The Browns' defense is solid. They've performed really, really well this year, and the Texans. The only thing that slightly disappoints me about this matchup is, and you kind of touched on it, the what might have been, the injuries that we've seen throughout this season. I would have loved to have seen a full strength Texans offense playing against the Cleveland Browns. Slightly disappointed that we're not going to see Tank Dell lining up in this one. So, I mean, looking at the ESPN predictor, it's 50-50. It's a coin flip, and I think in my predictor I've leaned back and forth. I'm not going to tell you who. I'm not going to tell you who. I've been going back and forth, but the Flacco story for me is a brilliant one. Like, everybody loves an underdog, and Joe Flacco, like at the start of the season, was what's his name? The boy that was straight off the couch earlier on this season, and he's intro. Flacco's come straight off the couch. So I absolutely love that. I just think that's fantastic. What's the boy's name? That's terrible. Justin Pugh. Justin Pugh, straight off the couch. So I love the fact that Flacco, he's a tremendous talent, and he said like when he was getting interviewed about the possibility of coming back and playing in the league this year, he did say like he was still like. Yeah, I think he said he was just like chucking the ball about with his brother, basically, like just kind of keeping himself as sharp as he could do. So the fact that he's come in and he's just done so well, and then the Browns' last game, they rested him. They didn't really care. They already had their eyes on this game against the Texans. It's massive for them. All credit to Kevin Stefanski as well. From a coaching side of things, there's been so much turmoil. Like, we all know about the turmoil that there's been at the Cleveland Browns. So it's nice to have a bit of a kind of feel-good story coming out of it, and them rallying behind a quarterback that we can all rally behind. That's quite nice for a change. So I would like to see Flacco do well for that reason, but I I love Stroud. The Texans have just been so fun to watch this season. They have been absolutely brilliant, and I love the fact. I mean, we know quite a few guys, Texans fans, that have been in touch with the pod and been on the pods, and to see where they've come from, like those dark days where they've had so many quarterback disasters to say the least. So yeah, to see them coming back as well into the playoffs is brilliant.
Yeah, it's been great. I mean, the Texans have been one of the darlings of the crew this year. We've been right behind them. We've really enjoyed watching them playing and the transformation. I'm just going to throw some stats out. You just look at Flacco. Flacco, 300 plus yards and multiple TDs in his last 4 games. That's unreal. The Browns D is number 1 in the league for yards allowed. Flipping over the Texans, Nico Collins, as you mentioned there about Tank Dell, Nico Collins has stepped up big time. Yeah, absolutely. Last week, 9 receptions for 195 yards last week. That is just ridiculous. And obviously with the Cruz missile last week, that play, 75 yards, 1 pass. And I remember listening to the commentators, they're like, I can't remember who it was it Greg Olsen? I can't remember who was covering the game, said they've had that play going up since Thursday. They've known since Thursday that was their first play of the game. That's the sort of thing that you do in the build up to the game. And no matter when we get the ball first, that's the first play of the game, catch them cold, and it worked. CJ Stroud this season, 4,108 yards, 23 touchdowns, and only 5 interceptions. For a rookie coming into the league to only throw, I mean, he went that period for ages without throwing one at all. But 5 interceptions.
How many games was it? He set an NFL record, didn't he, for rookie with no interceptions?
Yeah. No. So only 5. So, Ross, what's your thoughts on this game without telling us who you think is going to win?
I think out of all the games for Wildcard weekend, it has the possibility to be the biggest stinker.
Oh,
because if you've got a rookie QB with possibly their best receiver, Tank Dell's it, and then you've got a defense like the Browns, but they've got Joe Flacco, and I'm not saying that he has been fantastic, but it feels set up that it's going to be hyped, and I could really see it being a stinker, but I hope not. I would love to see loads of yards. I think someone like Dalton Schultz is so important with his experience as well. I could really see him coming into play. As you say, Nico Collins has been fantastic. It's an interesting one as well. David Njoku, who's probably been one of my top 5 players of the season. I think he's been absolutely fantastic. It's a tough one. Out of all the games, I think it's maybe the hardest one to call.
Yeah. So, Ross, in terms of, you mentioned quite a few of the offensive players for both teams there. So, over either team, who do you think, from an offensive point of view, if you pick one player who's going to set this game alight from the offensive point of view, who's it going to be?
It would need to be Nico Collins, and I suppose CJ Stroud to Nico Collins for the Texans. In terms of for the Browns, it's that, like I say, it's Njoku, I think. I mean, the running game's going to be pretty interesting to see because that Cleveland defense is so good, but Devin Singletary is vast experience. He's a solid runner. He's powerful. It's going to be. I can't. There's a few players I could pick, but I think Njoku and maybe Nico Collins are the 2 to watch.
Yeah. And Studs, from a defensive point of view, obviously we'll come to you about the game, the next game, but in terms of a defensive point of view, who do you think one player from either team, doesn't matter which team, who's going to be step up on D for your team this week?
I think the obvious one for the Browns is Myles Garrett. The guy's a game wrecker. He can literally take this game by the scruff of the neck and absolutely control it for the Browns. It's whether that Texans O-line can give Stroud the time for guys like Nico Collins, Dalton Schultz taking a get home. In terms of the Texans side, again, it feels like it's kind of a pretty obvious answer and going with Will Anderson, who's also had a really impressive rookie season this year as well. I think probably the sneaky one on the Texans side is probably Derek Stingley Jr. If he plays, he's had a pretty decent season as well for the Texans. So I think, can he get involved? We know Flacco's a gunslinger. We mentioned, obviously, multiple touchdowns already. I think it's 13 since he's come in, but he's also thrown 8 interceptions as well. So we know he likes to throw it about. Can people like Stingley Jr. thrive on that and step in, get those short fields for CJ Stroud, which will help settle him down, certainly, and not rely on it being a full-on shootout going the full length of the field each time.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I can't say anything different for you guys on those ones. I think, as Ross mentioned, Dalton Schultz, I think it'll be huge. I don't think he's going to be the player that sets the game alight. But I've been really impressed with Jerome Ford, the Browns this year. He's also stepped in as well, and depending on how this game goes, if it comes to the running game, I'd fancy having Ford in my team ahead of the two running backs that the Texans have got, because they've not been massively great for them. Do you know what I mean? So it's going to be an interesting matchup, as we said. So we'll get to predictions after this. Next game. Sorry,
It's what I've found fascinating when I've been looking at this game is the ones we've been talking about. We've obviously spoke about both tight ends and Schultz and Njoku being massive players for both teams. The wide receivers as well, and Nico Collins, who we've mentioned. Nobody's mentioned Amari Cooper on that front. And again, the two of them are actually, see, when you look at the stats for Cooper compared to Nico Collins, they're both on over 1,200 yards for the season. Cooper's got 5 touchdowns, Collins has got 8. That, again, stats are really similar. These are the guys that these teams rely on. So it is really going to be your wide receiver. It's going to be a wide receiver tight end battle the whole way for me.
Yeah, that's a good shout. Right, let's move on. Right, there's only one place we can go with to start with this game, but this could be one of the coldest games in NFL history. That's what it's been dubbed. I looked up some stats today. If it goes ahead at the temperatures that's predicted, which is at kickoff for us in the UK, will be minus 17 degrees Celsius. That is Baltic, right? But it'll only be the 10th coldest game in NFL history. So they're building it up to be one of the coldest games ever, but there's 9 games that have been colder than it. I think it's all going to come down to the wind chill as well. They're basically saying it'll be 0 degrees Fahrenheit at kickoff. It'll depend on the wind chill factor, but to be fair, I wouldn't fancy playing football minus 17 degrees Celsius. Studs, big story, Tyreek returning. You've been praying for it for weeks. It's now happening. Tell us how this one's going to go.
For me, again, the weather's obviously going to be a factor. Miami wanted the 2 home games. They wanted that number 2 seed so as they could go through Miami. They don't want to play in the cold weather. Listen, they made a good effort last year up in Buffalo with, was it Skylar Thompson as their QB, I think, when they went to Buffalo. Right, yeah. So, and I think that was the whole Mike McDaniel's giving it, we wish it was colder type thing, and the T-shirts were all printed up and stuff like that as well. So, for that perspective, it's right. They might be trying to get into that mindset of, we'd love it to be colder, but for me, the bottom line is, I think the Dolphins are really banged up, particularly on the defence, and I know our offence hasn't been great outside of probably Pacheco. But over the season, we're still the number 9 offence in the league. So we're talking about how we've had the constant drops for the wide receivers in KC. Kelsey hasn't really been playing since some massive incident happened in his life, but I can't really put my finger on it. But for me, I'm fully backed. And again, I think the Chiefs are going to, well, we'll get to predictions later. I don't think it's going to be any surprises on that front for me.
I wonder who Studs is going to pick, though. I mean,
for me, the matchup that I want to see Sneed and Hill again. Hill was vocally bitching about the fact that the Chiefs were taking them to Frankfurt on various podcasts, saying they didn't want them in Arrowhead, this, that, and the next thing. Well, sorry, Hill, now's your chance. You're coming back to Arrowhead. It's playoff season. We know he's a big playoff player in Kansas City. We've seen him doing it for us. Sneed shut him down, along with various other number 1 receivers in the league over the year. After the Frankfurt game, Sneed was quite vocal about the fact that he had to get his hands on him at the line. Tyreek didn't seem to like that. So I think that's going to be the most fascinating matchup. It's going to be L'Jarius Sneed versus Tyreek Hill. Can he shut him down again? I think he's good enough that he can. Sneed's in a contract year where I think he is playing for that contract. And for me, I want to see him signed because I think he has been that good this year.
Yeah. So obviously, you just mentioned he's done a great job so far this season. Is there any part of you that's worried that Hill comes back now thinking, obviously, I got a point to prove because I'm back in Kansas, but the fact that Sneed did shut him down and there was all the verbals afterwards, he's now got a second point to prove, and he's now going to be putting an even bigger chip on his shoulder. Are you worried at all?
Honestly, no, because it's looking outside of Tyreek Hill, the chances that, again, as I mentioned, Dolphins banged up. Is Jalen Waddle going to be fit? So after Jalen Waddle, where is the next waiting for the Dolphins, it's A-Chain and Mostert. Again, two guys that have been pretty banged up, certainly recently. A-Chain's had he's had his blow-up games, but he's also had his injuries throughout the season as well, where he's missed multiple games. Mostert doesn't seem to be able to stay fit for an entire season over the last probably 4 or 5 years. So it's really, where are the Dolphins going to be relying on their weapons? Are we talking Braxton Berrios as their next wide receiver up? Somebody Smythe, I can't remember his first name. Durham Smythe. Cheers, Ross. So it's these are weapons that I'm not afraid of. The weapon you're afraid of is Tyreek Hill. He can blow the top off, he can get receptions, but I think what a lot of people seem to forget is Tyreek Hill's got a history of drops as well. You can't tell me that the cold weather's not going to play a factor in him being able to catch the ball.
Yeah, what's local time kickoff over here? Is it 8? Is that a late one?
We're the 1 o'clock kickoff over here, so.
Late. So, here's a question for you: are the floodlights at Arrowhead going to play a factor in this game?
Ooh.
Listen,
it's been blamed on.
It's been blamed before, I know. So again, well, Tyreek Hill's one of the ones that's mentioned it as well. So it could certainly play a factor.
Just come back to your saying about players there. So Jalen Waddle is in limited practice, so I think they are expecting him to play. Somebody else that popped up last week watching them against the Bills didn't do anything spectacular, but it seemed to be getting a bit of attention with Cedric Wilson as well. He seemed to get a few catches last week. He's not going to set the header in light, but he seems to do well. Craig, what's your thoughts on this one?
Well, the Dolphins, they're going to need all the help they can get. I mean, they really are going to have to rely on Hill. They've really struggled the past 2 games. They've been really poor. They were humbled by the Ravens, and as soon as Hill went down, not only did it destroy my fantasy season, which I'm still bitter about, by the way. Like Tua and Hill, they had brilliant chemistry at the beginning of the season. So I totally agree with what you're saying, Studs, about the running game and how it can be like feast and famine in some of the games that the Dolphins have played in. Whether they can get that going at Arrowhead, it's going to be difficult. I've just been looking at the stats in this game to see like what else can Miami do apart from obviously having their biggest weapon available. What else can they possibly do against a Chiefs offense that, let's be honest, the Chiefs haven't been the Chiefs of old. I think that's fair to say, Studs. Like this season, they went through that wee patch earlier in the season where they lost a few games, few in the bounce where it was. Questions were being asked of guys like Mahomes. Kelsey got a lot of flack this season. He's probably been unfairly targeted a lot. He's had a lot of media attention this year, and everything's been laser focused on him for that reason. Any drops, he's not the worst offender for dropping the ball in Kansas City. We all know that. But yeah, whenever he's had these mistakes as well, the media's just been absolutely hounding him to the point where they would question, is this going to be Kelsey's last season and things ridiculous like that. He's already come out and said, "Don't be daft, I'll be back next season." So I think the home advantage is definitely going to be massive, and the weather aspect. Miami. Historically, when you've seen these difficult games, difficult conditions, they like to play in nice sunny, dry climate. They're used to that, so I think that could play a big factor in this as well. Be a hostile environment to go in.
Going back to what you're talking about, Kelsey, there, and we don't talk about or much on this podcast, but did you see the story about Taylor Swift last week, where she'd booked out one of the biggest VIP lounges at SoFi Stadium for the game last week, and then found out that Kelsey wasn't playing and cancelled her booking. She was paying whatever the most expensive lounge was in SoFi for the game that she could get. She'd booked it and then found out he wasn't playing, so she cancelled it.
I hope she got a deposit back.
I hope she did. You can't cancel within 24 hours notice and get your money back. What's that?
Not exactly short of a bob or two. I'm sure she didn't lose any sleep over it.
It's not like Chargers fans are going to fill it. Let's be honest, they don't fill so fast.
Oh, that's true. Looking at injuries for the Chiefs, Rashee Rice was down as questionable, but it looks like he was in full practice today. the only people for the Chiefs side of the ball, Justin Ross was limited practice, but he's trending towards, and Wanya Morris is out with concussion. So it looks like, with the exception of Morris, the Chiefs are going to be at full capacity for this one. From the Chiefs, you've still got Xavier Howard, Javon Holland, and Deshaun Elliott all didn't practice today. They've obviously picked up a few free agents on the defensive side of the ball due to injuries last week as well.
And ex-Chief and Justin Houston.
Yeah, Justin Houston. And there was I can't remember the other two, but yeah, they picked up a couple of people as well. So yeah, but interested to see how this one plays out. Right, Let's move on to players. We're not done players. Let's not go with the obvious ones here, because it's obvious that we're going to pick Tyreek Hill for the offensive side of the ball here, Craig. So tell me someone who's going to light up this game that isn't Tyreek Hill on the offensive side of the ball.
I mean, perfect. I mean, Tyreek and two are the obvious ones. Other than that, I say probably if they can get the ground game going, you're going to have to hope that likes the Devon A-Chain or Mostert can combine and be a good 1-2 punch on the ground. If they can, then yeah, who knows? Any given Sunday and all that, or any given Saturday, because it's an early one. I don't know. Is that still
in the UK, so you can get away with it.
Aye, that's fine. Any given Sunday. But yeah, that every offensive element of Miami is going to have to be on point, I think, in this game.
Ross, from a defensive point of view, who's going to stand out in this game?
For the Chiefs, it would be Chris Jones, probably, I'd say. I worry about the Chiefs defensively. I don't think if Mahomes isn't up to speed, I can't see that defense holding the Dolphins. I think the thing that will kill the Dolphins is if the Chiefs take a lead and they blow a couple of drives and they start getting in their own head. I think that's the way the Chiefs win the game. But Chris Jones is going to be a massive part for the Chiefs defensively, I'd say.
Number 2 defense on the season.
What's that?
Number 2 defense on the season, Chiefs.
But you still lost to the Raiders. You still lost to the Raiders, and still through a lot of games you shouldn't have lost.
100%. I'm not going to disagree with you on that one.
I mean, you could have the number 2
other factors. So, by the way, Smudger, see if you come back with that. If that all the help they can get, my head went right away to the refs. So, see if that happens.
I mean, to be fair, you could have the number 1 defense in the league and lose every game 3-0, and I mean, you can still be there. So,
right. I've still got memories of was it a divisional or a wildcard game against the Steelers, and we lost to 4 field goals. And Alex Smith was the QB at that one. So it was something like 12-9 or something ridiculous like that. We lost to like 3 or 4 field goals.
Right, let's flip it over to Sunday. So first up, we got the Steelers at the Bills. So this is another one that's going to be impacted by the weather. Studs will give us a weather update in a wee second on this one, but we're looking at no TJ Watt for the Steelers, possibly no Minka Fitzpatrick, and the Bills are starting to warm up nicely. Studs, give us the weather update first. What's the latest with this game?
Well, just there was a note on Twitter basically saying if there's a state of emergency called in Buffalo that the game could be moved to Cleveland due to how bad the weather's going to get. So it's going to be something certainly to monitor. From that standpoint, the fact that it could be Pittsburgh playing in the Cleveland Browns Stadium in a playoff game, and the Browns are having to travel to Texas.
I was going to say, it's hilarious that the Browns get to the playoffs for ages and someone else plays a home game in their stadium in the playoffs.
Aye, and of all the teams, it's the Steelers.
Do you know what? We need to get a picture. If this happens, right, we need to get a picture for Brian of the Paul Brown Stadium full of terrible towels and get it printed and blown up for him.
Oh, he'll be fuzzy.
He will not be happy.
Is this game not on Saturday as well? Is this not an early kick-off on Saturday rather than Sunday? I think this is a 6 o'clock game Saturday.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe.
I think it's Steelers, Bills, then Chiefs is the last one, and Packers, Cowboys is the middle one, no?
No, it's Browns, Texans, and UK time, half 9 Saturday.
Sorry, it's just
there's two Saturday, technically 3 Sunday, and 1 Monday.
No, you're right. Apologies.
Sorry, throw a flag on that one. And Studs will still argue it was wrong. So So Steelers at Bills. Ross, how do you see this one playing out?
I've been very surprised with the Steelers, I'll be honest. I didn't have a lot of hope for Mason Rudolph coming in, but he's been pretty good. Deontay Johnson's hit a bit of form. I think the Steelers are looking all right. This is about the weather and potentially moving stadiums is a massive factor. Because if this is in New York and it's at the Bills, I can only see it going one way realistically. But if it's suddenly you're in Cleveland, well, that opens it up. I think I know how I'm going to say it will go, and I'll obviously keep that for a bit. But could be a tight one as well, like the Browns and the Texans. It could be a tight one.
Yeah. I mean, am I the only person that wants this game to go ahead in Buffalo so that Rudolph's got a red nose?
You want at least one game where the conditions are just absolutely horrendous, just to see how it pans out.
Definitely.
It's part of playoff football.
Aye.
Craig, I'm going to throw some stats at you here from the Bills' point of view. So, James Cook this season, rushing yards 1,122. Only two rushing touchdowns, though.
I know.
Catch through the air, 44 catches for 445 yards and 4 touchdowns. So from an offensive point of view for the Bills, I mean, as someone whose team has been ripped apart by James Cook this season, from an offensive point of view for the Bills, how are they going to do this one?
So, I mean, I've been rooting for James Cook this season. Like, obviously, as a Vikings fan and a big Dalvin Cook fan, when he was in his peak of his powers, to see his brother doing well for the Bills and kind of breaking through, he's been a player that I've certainly been kind of rooting for. And let's be honest, he's done better than his brother has this year at the Jets since they've let him go. But we might still see a wee bit of Dalvin Cook in the playoffs, as we saw in the headlines earlier on this week. I think it was covered in the last pod. So, like looking at you, but the Bills say they've got the talent there. They've got players that could potentially, come in and do a job. I mean, we were joking about even guys like Fournette, the return of playoff Lenny, like things like that might be interesting.
He's been good. He's been actually very. I was so impressed with him the last game. Like, obviously, it hurts. I wish we'd kept him. I love Lenny, but I was really impressed with him, watching him. Obviously, coming in for a few plays, he was looking at it.
So I mean, he could come in and could potentially come in and be a difference maker. I mean, he's used to these kind of high pressure games, these situations. So that's not going to be something that's likely going to get to him. Guys like Cook, in a rookie season, you just don't know. You don't know how a lot of these players are going to react to these more intense games. And you've seen the bottle go in many players in the past when it comes to these kind of these playoff games. Josh Allen has been again a wee bit hot and cold for the Bills. He's not been as consistent. I would say as the Bills were. Last season, the Bills looked a much stronger team, and guys like Stephon Diggs earlier in the season, again, he's had kind of off the fields issues and everything else. So, whereas the Steelers side, they've slogged their way through this season. They've earned their spot, and just one wee shout out, because I think this is definitely worth mentioning as well, just from the Steelers point of view. You've got to give a shout out to the AFC North when you look at that division and how tough that division has been this season. The fact that they might be going to Cleveland, the big division rival, the fact that every single team has a winning record, and the fact that the Bengals even sitting bottom of that division at 9-8, when you've got other teams that I won't mention, but there are other teams in the playoffs at 9-8 that the Bengals must be going, hold on a minute, wait a minute here. So they've done it the hard way, the Steelers, because they've had a lot of teams like in their division. The Ravens, they've looked fantastic. Cleveland's are rejuvenated. So for the Steelers to surprise everybody and actually get to this point, definitely deserve massive credit. Although gutted last week to see Watt getting injured like that, you can't underemphasize how important a player, how special a player he is, and to not have him in that side is just such a massive blow.
I mean, I'm not going to apologise because I made a prediction at the start of the season and got it wrong, but I'm not going to apologise for making a prediction. But I did at the start of the season think that the Steelers were going to have their Mike Tomlin's first losing season. Obviously, it proved me wrong somehow because I still don't know how they've got a winning season, to be fair. But fair play to them. I mean, credit where credit's due. They've pulled it together and they've got themselves into the playoffs. Studs, I'm going through a few other stats at you. For the Steelers' point of view, Najee Harris, 1,035 yards and 8 touchdowns. Jalen Warren, 784 yards for 4 touchdowns. So just shy of 1,800 yards between two running backs in the regular season this year. That's some return for the Steelers, isn't it?
It's ridiculous how good a tandem that they've actually been. I think I'd mentioned when we were sitting watching the games last week, our Red Zone was on. Najee Harris is just an absolute battering ram of a player. He really is. He will run. I'm pretty sure he'd run over his own gran to get that extra yard. Do you know what I mean? I think he's been quietly effective. It hasn't looked great, but it is all the hard yards he's getting. I think Warren's certainly looked more explosive. He's definitely the one you get him in space. He is going to make something happen, and I think that's why, if you're a Steelers fan, for me, take Mason Rudolph, put him in the bin. He really, I mentioned it last week, I really don't want to see Mason Rudolph in the playoffs, being brutally honest. But how can you not be excited about seeing that running back tandem go? So for me, that's where, if you're a Steelers fan, you are praying for the worst possible weather, probably similar to last week when they were playing the Ravens. They want a horrible weather game so they can get that running back game going. To give them a potential chance. You do not want to be getting into a shootout with Buffalo on the arm of Mason Rudolph for me.
Yeah. I mean, someone who's took a bit of a down on the podcast this year, and probably rightly so to an extent, has been Stephon Diggs, because we've said about not being a team player, but I feel like watching them last week, I feel like that was a Stephon Diggs the Bills need last week. He seemed to be right in the game. He was making big plays. It was mic'd up. I don't know if you've seen that, if it was him, it was Josh Allen, and he basically was saying, like, let's go on the field this next drive. Let's basically put the knife in and get this game wrapped up. And it was all about the team, which we've not seen a lot of from Stephon Diggs. So if that's the Stephon Diggs that turns up this week, then the Steelers are in trouble. On the defensive side of the ball, just a couple of stats. Obviously, TJ Watt, big loss for the Steelers. Behind him in terms of sacks, we've got Alex Highsmith. He's got 7 sacks, so basically nearly half TJ Watt's sacks. And Leonard Floyd for the Bills has got 10.5 sacks. So in terms of the weather, if the ball is going to be a running game, are the quarterbacks going to get a chance to get time on the ball if they do decide to throw it? It'll be interesting to see how much pressure the Steelers can get on Josh Allen without having TJ Watt in the trenches for them. Let's get the players picked for this one. Smudger, give us your offensive player of this game.
Both sides? What side do you want?
Just one player. Doesn't matter.
I'd say you hit the nail on the head. Josh Allen, he's the glue that's holding that Bills offense together, without doubt.
Yep. Studs, defensive player.
Defensive player, you mentioned them there. I think Hightower, Highsmith. Hightower's the ex-Patriots boy.
That's right.
From Police Academy, depends on where you look at it.
Well, I think Highsmith's going to have to step up and take a lot of responsibility with TJ Watt being out the game. So he's really going to have to be a leader in there and really drive that defence and get the pressure on Josh Allen and see how they go for there.
Well, I know much. I just thought about. I've just completely forgot about it till now. In terms of people with big mouths and lighting the mouth off, Joey Porter Jr. against Stephon Diggs. What a matchup that's going to be. That's going to be one for.
That'll definitely be interesting. As you say, both guys like to chat a lot, shall we say? So it'll definitely be interesting if they two are coming up face to face. But I say the one thing I'm actually baffled. I was just quickly looking at it there in terms of when you were mentioning the stats. Steelers offense 25th in the league, defense 21st in the league. And then you're looking at the Bills side, it's 4th and 9th for offense and defense. It just looks like such a mismatch in the playoffs. So Steelers are going to have to really rely on that defense. Josh Allen, again, he's known he's always got a couple of turnovers in him every single game. He does always need to bounce back. So it's where are the Steelers getting those turnovers? Are they getting them in their own red zone, or are they getting them at the Buffalo end of the field?
Yeah, no, I get that. But this is Wildcard weekend, and the strangest things do happen in Wildcard weekend. So it'll be interesting to see how this one plays out. Right, let's get to the biggest game of the weekend. Packers at the Cowboys.
I thought you were going Bucks, Eagles at Bucks.
I'll throw a couple. I'm not going to. Obviously, if I was chatting, I'd be more biased than you guys have been with your teams. So I'll throw a few stats out at you before I'll throw it over to you guys. So Cowboys 8-1 at home this season. Average winning margin at home 21.5 points. We have only had one playoff win in the last 4 years though. 16 straight wins at home. Average of 2 takeaways at home this season as well. And Micah Parsons 14 sacks. But to caveat that, in the last 10 games against the Packers are 9-1 against the Cowboys. But
I love that. Nodding away there. He's like, yeah.
I was waiting to tell you, but you beat me to it.
There's no Aaron Rodgers, right? I'll do a wee quick bit on the Cowboys and I'll let you guys kind of get into the depth. But this season, I think we've seen the massive improvement under Mike McCarthy being the play caller for us this year. From the offensive ball, I think it was at week 4 or whatever, where CD Lamb went and banged on the door and said, Mike McCarthy, give me the ball. And since that week, he has been number 1 receiver in the league under every stat that is going. So I'm looking forward to seeing that against probably Jay Alexander. I'm assuming they're going to put up against him. So that'll be a good matchup. In terms of the Packers, what a turnaround they've had this season. I mean, I don't think anybody would have fancied it to take the playoffs. Apart from me, I predicted it. But I'll not bang that drum too much. But yeah, Jordan Love, what a turnaround that has been for him. He's really coming to his own. And over last week, we spoke about him quite a bit. And they're set for the future. On the offensive side of the ball, they have a very young and exciting wide receiver core. They've got a young quarterback. And I think I mentioned last week, the only thing they maybe need to add is that running back that's going to give him the next 5 years of his career. So, yeah, I think this is going to be an interesting matchup. Smudger, what do you think? How do you see this one going?
I mean, like you just mentioned there, the Green Bay Packers, and I just have to throw in, it does pain me to say this. As a Vikings fan, it does pain me, but the Packers have been, they've gone from strength to strength as the season's gone on. The whole team has rallied around Jordan Love. They've praised his leadership qualities, the fact that he's got players going round to his house to watch Monday Night Football, making up food and stuff, and they're just talking about how he's just building such a bond and a rapport with all these offensive players. And the stats don't lie. I mean, there was one stat that jumped out that I'll chuck in just now. He's only the 3rd NFL quarterback to post 4,000 plus passing yards and 32 plus passing touchdowns in his first season with multiple starts. I don't know why they put with multiple starts in there, because I'd love to see somebody do that with one start. One start, 4,000 yards and 32 passing touchdowns. But the only other 2 were Kurt Warner and Patrick Mahomes. So pretty decent company. But he's been brilliant, and I think there was this massive question mark on the Packers. Obviously, with Rodgers leaving, going to the Jets, it was what was going to be their next move quarterback-wise. How soon was Jordan Love going to settle into the quarterback position? And at the beginning of the season, there was a lot of doubts. Is he going to hit the ground running, or was it going to be another season where you see Ricky come in and it's going to take them a long time to get used to this new system, everything else? But he's been fantastic. So it pains me to say it, saying it through gritty teeth. But yeah, he deserves a lot of credit.
Yeah. Just to keep on Jordan Love for a wee second, Ross, I'm not going to get into too much detail about the Buck check because we'll cover them in a second, but do you see any similarities in terms of what you've seen with Baker Mayfield taking over for Tom Brady, with Jordan Love taking over from Aaron Rodgers? Do you see, as there maybe been a bit of, like you mentioned there, Craig, about Jordan Love is now getting players back to his house and building that bond? Is that something maybe that was missing at the start because it's like the players are used to Rodgers' way? Do you think any similarities with the Bucks and Mayfield with Jordan Love?
I think so. Obviously, one of the things that hindered Baker early in his career was the fact he was kind of rub people up the wrong way. So I think he's kind of, when he's come out of Tampa, he's opened up. He's been a bit more friendly. I can absolutely see Jordan Love doing that. I think Jordan Love comes across a great guy. I've been so impressed with him. Annoyingly impressed, actually, because Packers are one of the teams I just always like to see them lose. But I can definitely see the similarities. I think Jordan Love, it's going to be interesting to see. I think probably the hardest game in the playoffs, Wildcard weekend, is Cowboys at the Cowboys. There's nowhere harder to go. So
yeah. So how do you see the game going
then? Probably one way. I think the attacking options for the Cowboys are disgusting. I think Rico Dowdle, Tony Pollard, CeeDee Lamb, Jake Ferguson, Schoonamaker, Tolbert. I think you've got so many boys there, so many fantastic players. It's whether Dak can avoid turnovers, which he's done for most of the season. He's done well in that regard. It's whether the Green Bay defense can hold up with, as you say, Jair Alexander in that.
Yeah. The studs, Dak Prescott was absolutely lambasted at the start of the season when he said he's not going to throw in interceptions this year. He hasn't. He has been the Dak Prescott we all know he can be. That MVP caliber Dak Prescott was seen before he got injured, and he's kept that going the full season this year. How do you see this one going?
I think there's probably going to be a crew curse on this one, and the fact that it's a one-way street. But to be fair, he's through 9 interceptions. There has been 9. He's not through any. He's through 9. I know he did. He put a number on it, and fair play to him for putting a number on it. It was a ballsy move. At the start of the season.
What he actually said at the start of the season, he got misquoted. He did say, "I'm not going to throw 10 interceptions due to missed." It was a lot of passes that were tipped or players maybe dropped it, and then they were intercepted. That was kind of what he said. He said there's not going to be, because he feels he's got a better connection with his wide receivers. So he feels that those type of interceptions weren't going to happen. But everybody just went for the headline and went, Dak Prescott season are going to throw 10 interceptions.
Don't let the truth get in the way of a good story, Dan. Come on.
Exactly.
That's coming from a Chiefs fan who believes every referee decision is not truthful. I should say a Chiefs fan who is a referee.
I was just going to throw that in there, to be fair. Different sports, but listen, I've not said every decision has been wrong. I've just said there's been some egregious ones. And again, funnily enough, when we're talking about the Packers, one of them did happen against the Packers in the MVS, where some sort of ghost sort of jumped on his back. He didn't have a green shirt on. But listen, for me, I think this is one-way traffic again. The Packers have been a great story. Mike McCarthy against his old club, right into Scottish mode there, his old team, is going to be a fascinating story. But for me, I think we are probably looking at a year too early for the Packers. We've mentioned about that young wide receiver room. It's crazy to think Christian Watson's the most experienced member of that at 24. So they are really set for the future. I don't think their defence has been as good. I think that's where the issues are going to be. And if you're looking at, we're talking about CeeDee Lamb, almost 800 yards in the regular season, 1,800 yards in the regular season. If Jair Alexander does shadow him, you take him away. Brandon Cooks is still a fantastic player as well. It's a guy that just goes to teams and gets 1,000-yard seasons no matter where he gets traded to. It'll be interesting to see who the Cowboys trade him to next year, because that seems to be the way of it. But yeah, for me, I think it's a Cowboys game to lose, shall we say, especially given the fact that he's have won your last 16 at home.
Right, keep yourself studs. Offensive player of the game, who's it going to be? It's got to be the one and only Jake Ferguson. Of course, the crew. I think we're all apologists on our favourite tight end pick for the fantasy, but I think again you can't go anywhere else but CeeDee Lamb. Tony Pollard, I did again until I read the stats, I didn't realise he'd actually had a 1,000-yard rushing season. He's on the eye. If you just purely looked at him and watched the games, you wouldn't have had him for a 1,000-yard season. But again, I think you get him in space. He's certainly an exciting running back.
I just don't think he's a bell cow, and I think that's been proved this season. But offensive, you're looking at CD Lamb and again, it's the total overfeeding them essentially that the Cowboys have been doing.
Yeah. And Ross, as a defensive player of this game, as obvious as it sounds.
It is indeed. It is Micah Parsons. It has to be. He's
Yeah.
a monster. He's a
I
monster.
thought it was going to be DeMarcus Lawrence.
I will say though, Darren Bland could be another choice for a solid defensive player that could change the game. Is it 6 pick six? He said.
Yeah.
6.
Aye.
So he could
Set
go.
the record.
You never know. I mean, but Micah Parsons is just unstoppable, and I think it's all on the Cowboys to go and do what's in front of them.
It's a total pick your poison with the Cowboys defense. To be fair, when you look, you've got Parsons and Lawrence on the opposite edges. You've got Deron Bland, who's had a great season, as you'd mentioned, Ross, as well. It is literally a pick your poison with that defense, and it's whether Love can stand up to that test.
Yeah, I mean, sorry, Craig, on go.
I was just to say, yeah, I agree. And if you're a Packers fan, there'll be no shame in losing this match. I think any Packers fan, if you told them, you mentioned it, Studs, with a team this young and with a quarterback this inexperienced, to have progressed as quickly as they have this season to make the playoffs, if you're one and done, there's no shame in that whatsoever. And I think any Packers fan will be delighted at what the post-Rodgers era in Green Bay's looked like so far.
Yeah, it's a free hit for the Packers. Absolute free hit.
Totally.
And I think, like you say, we'll comment predictions, but if they go one and done, this is just great experience for those young players. We've played a playoff game. Yeah. We've been away to Dallas and played a playoff game. And as long as they give a good account of themselves and we don't blow them out of the water, they can walk away and go, you know what, that was a really good season for us. And it's good to see the development going forward.
100%. I think, albeit Packers fans won't like what I'm about to say next, and the fact that I think last year at this time we were probably saying that the playoffs was a season too early for the Lions under Dan Campbell, and I think that's what you're looking at the same thing. And again, albeit they're rivals, but you're looking at a season probably too early for the Packers.
Okay, nice wee segue there. Our next game, Rams at the Lions.
Seamless.
Beautifully done.
Perfect. Right, couple of stats for you. Right, the Rams, again, that's another drum that I'm going to bang. I did predict them to win the playoffs, get into the playoffs. So the Rams have won 7 of their last 8. They've averaged nearly 30 points in those games. The Lions are shipping 23 points a game this season, and they've allowed a touchdown on 66% of opposition's red zone opportunities. So that's a good kind of battle between the two of them. The Lions, the second team in NFL history to have 4 players with 10 touchdowns in a season. They've averaged 30 points at home this year, and they've got the most rushing touchdowns in the league with 27 this season. Smudger, how's this one going to go?
I'm fascinated by this game because the Rams having gone from being Super Bowl winners to then having a disaster of a season, you've now got a Rams team back in the playoffs. They've won, I think, 7 of the last 8 games, so they're on a wee bit of form. And this is a team that's been there, that's done it, that's gone all the way. So I think from a mentality point of view, the players on that team that have been there and done this before, whereas they're up against a Lions team that haven't been here in a long time. And I think the Lions have had a great season. Hats off to them. They beat us twice this season, won the NFC North, and deservedly are in the playoffs. You made a really good point about the number of points, though, that they are still conceding. And I suspect that maybe just the fact that they are, new to the playoffs, the fact that this Rams team is on a wee bit of a roll as well, it's going to be really interesting from that point of view. What happens? They've got home field advantage though, so could be a factor there. It's not going to be an intimidating atmosphere for them. But yeah, I'm just looking at. You mentioned there Goff, like he's 12 interceptions for the season. Stafford's not that far, but he's 11 interceptions, so they're both capable of throwing a wayward pass. So it could be on both sides of the ball. The defensive interceptions could be huge in this. But the fact that it is in Ford Field, it's indoors. We're not having to worry about the weather, which is a good thing. We're not going to get a snow game here, so they are going to try and chuck the ball about, and it should be entertaining. It's going to be good fun.
I think this is probably the most balanced matchup over the weekend.
Yeah.
I think in terms of, obviously the Chiefs and the Finns is probably two very high-powered teams, but in terms of two teams that are very balanced, I think this is probably out with the Cowboys game, one of the games I'm excited to look forward to, because it could go either way. This is one of those games where I think it's going to go.
Yeah, no, I'll just say what I do want to see, like the fact that it's indoors at Ford Field, I want to see Puka Nacua and Amon-Ra St. Brown just getting all the yards. That just from an entertainment point of view, that's what I want to see from this game. I think that alone would just be fantastic to watch. Two absolutely brilliant receivers. We saw Puka in the last game. He get hooked. Was it just after half time? He get hooked. Sean McVay right. You're out of here. You've got the record that you wanted. You're on the bench until the playoff game. He's been tremendous. He's been absolutely brilliant this season. Really, really good season for him. So to see him, and I say St. Brown as well, who I'm a big fan of. Be brilliant to see the two of them kind of head to head.
Amon-Ra St. Brown with his bright blue hair. Have you seen the picture of that?
No.
He's got. I think I put on one of the group chats. He's dyed his hair basically lions blue.
Oh, I missed that.
Phenomenal, to be fair. I think some of these things look a bit cheap and a bit tacky, but to be fair to him, I think he's pulled this one off.
Nice.
Ross, how do you think? What do you think this one's going to come down to?
Oh God, it's as you say, it's the QBs. It's who's going to turn it over. Probably, I think both teams could be a back and forth, touchdown. I mean, the running game alone is with Kyren Williams, Jahmyr Gibbs, Montgomery. It's that scary in itself. And then you look at Laporta, Nacua. I think it's got the potential to be worth staying it up till 1:15 to start watching. It's going to be worth being tired at work on Monday, I think. It's probably the game I'm most interested to see behind the Bucks, because it's the game that affects us as well. So depending on the winner could mean we end up at the Cowboys or at the 49ers. If there's an upset with the Cowboys, we could end up at home to the Rams if the Rams come through. So I'm really excited to see that, but I couldn't call a winner, I don't think, in that.
Studs, do you think this is going to be a shootout?
I think that's the way we all want to see it as a total shootout, because it's like total. How was it described on Good Morning Football? It was like a wife swap, essentially, where Sean McVay basically was sitting in the hot tub with Matt Stafford at Cabo, and they decided to send him off to Detroit, which I found quite amusing. So again, it's two guys that are throwing the ball about. Again, Ross has put it a lot better than I did as well. I mean, that running game you're looking at, obviously, Kyren Williams has been probably a surprise of the season. I think he's looked fantastic when he was fit. And to think that he's went over 1,000 yards after missing, I think he went on IR for at least 4 weeks as well. So to consider what he could have done if he was fully fit for the full season, I think it's really positive for the Rams going into next year. And then Jahmyr Gibbs has been probably as advertised coming out of college. He has looked, at times, absolutely special on that Lions team when they've been getting him involved. And again, I think when Montgomery went out injured for a few weeks as well, he really stepped up his game to the extent where I think probably a lot of Lions fans and fantasy owners were saying just keep giving him the ball. But they've brought Montgomery back. They've obviously paid him a good bit of money in the summer, the Lions. And again, he's done a great job for them as well. So I think it is pretty fascinating. And again, obviously, Smudger kind of mentioned on the offensive side of the ball, he wants to see Puka Nacua versus Amon-Ra St. Brown and going back and forth. There's a pretty average wide receiver sitting behind Puka Nacua that I think he's no bad.
Cooper, what's his name? Aye.
It's on the tip of my tongue, but you thought again, you're looking at Cooper Cup. Wasn't it too long ago, 2 seasons ago, when they went to the Super Bowl, that he won the Triple Crown? So the weapons are all there. I think the biggest disappointment in this game is probably the fact that Laporta is struggling after his injury last week. So I think that would be the biggest disappointment. I do really think that will hurt the Lions if he doesn't make it.
Yeah. Jameer Gibbs is basically for the Lions what the Falcons thought they were getting with Bijan Robinson. It's a case of bullseye here. Look at what you could have won if you had played your running back.
Or when you've got a competent head coach that knows how to use their running back.
Yeah, exactly. I know it's not a direct matchup in this game, but I think we've kind of got the legend versus the upcoming star in Aaron Donald against Aiden Hutchinson. I think that's Hutchinson's been frightening this season. Yeah. I'm going to throw it out there. He's going to be. I've not done any games yet, but I'm going to pick this one. Aiden Hutchinson's going to be the defensive player in this game. He needs to step up and put that pressure on Stafford for the Lions to have a chance. And I think he's just getting better and better every time you see him. He's just getting better and better, and he's an absolute machine. Coming out for such a young player, not as much experience as some of the other players in the league. He's been phenomenal this year. So I'm going to throw that in as a defensive player for this game. Ross, who's your offensive player in this game?
So many to choose from.
There is. I'm going to give one for either side. Cooper Cup, I think, could be not a redemption, the start of redemption, but like it could be this is what back at his best in the playoffs. I'd say Cooper Cup for the Rams, and if I would have liked to have thought Laporta is maybe going to be fit enough, but if he's in limited practice, whatever, it's not ideal. So I would definitely say it'll be Amon-Ra St. Brown or David Montgomery. It's too many top quality offensive players.
Yeah, Laporta, he's not practiced this week
at all. Did not practice at all.
Today either. That's
a shame.
Not looking likely.
That's a shame.
If you don't play if you don't train on a Wednesday, then that's a standard thing, especially for experienced players. But coming into a Thursday, maybe the fact that the late game on Sunday maybe gives them a chance.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, it's probably.
Yeah. Well, just on that, on the Bleacher Report, it's saying that Sam Laporta is optimistic he'll be able to play.
So maybe he's just doing that whole we'll no practice him, just protect him type thing, rather than because in terms of game plan and all that, it's all done mentally. It's not really done I'm assuming for him it's just about the knowing what plays they're going to run and stuff like that. Doesn't really need to go on the field to get prepared for the game. So I mean,
you think with Laporta there's a little bit of regret now. Like could they arrested a few players in the last game?
Mm-hmm.
But as a head coach, you're already in the playoffs. You've already won the division. Get your key players on the bench and rest them up because these things happen. And this could. I know, but this could come back to bite them in the arse. Basically, you've not got them playing in this massive game.
Yeah, I did make the point last week about when we were talking about should you rest players, should you play them, and I think the Lions were one of the teams that I thought probably should play their players because I said there's certain teams that can afford to rest their players, like the Chiefs. But there's other teams who need the momentum to keep going. And I think the Lions are one of those teams that and it's obviously backfired on them. It has backfired on them. I think. I can understand why he's played them in terms of keeping that team, keeping the momentum going, maybe pulling them a wee bit later in the game. So I can understand why it's just been unfortunate that it's backfired on them. Right, let's get to the last game. Eagles at the Bucks. This is going to be an interesting one. So Eagles have lost 5 of their last 6 games. Did we know that? Did anybody notice that stat?
Yep.
Who's the only team that they've beaten their last 6 games?
Cowboys.
Giants at the Link. And even then, the Giants pushed them a lot closer than they should have been. So the Eagles are well on a slide. In terms of the Eagles' defense, I didn't realize they had 70 sacks last season. Right, this year they've only had 43, but they've only 13 in their last 8 games. Their defense is really, really struggling. We've mentioned throughout the season at the back end, this Eagles' defense has really struggled in terms of cornerback safeties. Hadison Reddick's obviously done a really good game for them. They're 30th for scoring D, so D's not even getting them any points either, so they're really struggling. It sounds like I'm really battering on the Eagles here, doesn't it?
Keep going. Keep going.
As a Cowboys fan, it just comes so naturally to you, Dan.
So that's the only thing I can do. To be fair, the reason I've not really mentioned any stats about the Bucks is because I'm going to let Ross take that one away. So I thought I'll throw in the counter punch and tell you how bad the Eagles are, and Ross can tell us how good the Bucks are. On you go, Ross.
After a 9-0 win over at Carolina, I'm not the person to try and convince you that we're playing well. Listen, we've won the games we needed to win. We've went on a run for the second half of the season, winning 4 in a row and then 5 in a row. But Baker's really hurt the week. He got a big hit in the ribs a couple of weeks ago, and I don't think he was fully fit. But they didn't trust. Bloody. Oh, I've blanked on the guy's name. Backup QB now. Anyway, didn't really trust him. Thought we need to put him in because we need to beat the Panthers to make sure we get a division, which we could probably done without Baker. But a 9-0, I think that's 7 quarters we failed to score a touchdown. So that's not good. But
Kyle Trask.
Yeah, it's Trask.
Kyle Trask. That was it. I can remember his name. A lot of people saying if Baker's no recovered, give it to Trask. The problem is, I would have said that's a good idea, but Jalen Hurts has had limited practice, so he's not definitely out. Which I did think on Sunday, Monday, I thought Hurts will be out. He's the limited practice. AJ Brown didn't practice, but Darius Slade, Devonta Smith, and DeAndre Swift for the Eagles have all practiced, so they aren't as beat up as I thought they would be. So I'm a bit more apprehensive now. But Antoine Winfield Jr. should have been in the Pro Bowl. Get snubbed for Buda Baker. Outrageous. It is what it is. It's a popularity contest. But then he goes and he makes that big play last week at the Panthers to stop us conceding that touchdown. And I think defensively we've been good. We need a lot for Jamal Dean, Devin White, Antoine Winfield, as I say. But it's about Baker being able to target Mike Evans, Godwin as well, both making 1,000-yard seasons. The only duo to make 1,000 yards, both of them for a team in the NFC in the last 3 years for the same team. It's all really down to Hurts whether he's playing. I think Baker could go out there and do what he done against Green Bay with a perfect passer rating, but it's going to rely on, if it's Mariota, I'll be a lot more confident. If it's Hurts, I'm slightly wary. But either way, I've taken Tuesday off work, so.
I mean, to be fair, it's a finger injury that hurts it where your quarterbacks tend to play. Unless you're Matt Stafford, who absolutely battered his finger against us. You'd probably expect Hurts to play through a finger injury, whether they strap up, give an injection, whatever you'd expect, especially in the playoffs. They will do everything they can to get him on the field. As someone who has got a chip on their shoulder about players not making the Pro Bowl, studs, Antoine Winfield Jr. should have been the Pro Bowl. He has been phenomenal this year, hasn't he?
And the fact that it was overlooked for Buda Baker, and again, no disrespect to Buda Baker, if this was sort of 3-4 years ago, then you could maybe understand it, but Buda Baker really hasn't done much. He's with Arizona Cardinals. They've not looked great on defense. Antoine Winfield Jr. has been producing at a high level for the past 3-4 seasons as well. And again, he's been the standout on that defense. For me, I think the Bucs defense as a whole has looked pretty good. To be honest, I think they're kind of starting to kind of get back to maybe where they were when they won the Super Bowl, like say Devin White, obviously one of the big leaders on that defense. If he can get going and get after Jalen Hurts, then I don't see why the Bucs can't take this as a win. To be honest, this over the weekend, this is probably the game I've struggled with the most in terms of where I'm going with my predictions. This is probably the one I'm sitting in the fence the most about, to be perfectly honest, just because, as you mentioned, how the Eagles have went into the playoffs and how the Eagles have probably looked all season. I think if it was coming out as a movie, it would be just enough, the Philadelphia Eagles, to be honest. But we've obviously joked about that with Kev throughout the season on kind of various pods and stuff. But it's the Bucs. Mayfield has looked great, and I think you're probably looking at that secondary as where the Eagles' flaws are. And when you're looking at somebody like Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, obviously, free agent, trying to get his bag of money at the end of the season as well. He's stepped up again this year and probably Baker's favourite target. Again, I've been quite vocal about it on a previous pod and in our chats. If Mike Evans wants to fly up to Kansas in the off-season, I'd be quite happy, to be perfectly honest. So, but no, Antoine Winfield Jr. should 100% be in that Pro Bowl. It's the fact that he's not, and again, you mentioned, obviously, I chapped my shoulder about Sneed not being there as well. It just shows how flawed the voting is in the Pro Bowl. They need to have a serious look at that, because you're getting players that are just too good to be missing out.
Yeah. I mean, watching the Bucs last week, you could really see that Baker was in a lot of pain. He was hobbling about. He couldn't get off the field without limping, and obviously it was his ribs, and you could tell just looking at him. It looks as if he'd put on about 10 stone. All the padding he clearly had on, you could see how much it was wrapped up. So for the Bucs to have any chance to win this week, they need Mayfield to be fit, and they need him at his best. They can't. As they mentioned, obviously Kyle Trask. I don't see much of him. I can't really see much about him, but I'm going to say that for the Bucs to win this, they need Baker Mayfield on that field, firing on all cylinders. Right, give us a player. Smudger, who's the offensive player in this game?
Well, I think Evans is the standout wide receiver here that we've talked about, how he wants his back of money studs. 13 touchdowns this season. He is brilliant, and when Mayfield has been fit, his distribution has been good. The fact that he's been able to feed Evans, feed Godwin as well. You mentioned it, Ross, the stat about the two of them having the 1,000-yard plus season between the two of them. But yeah, I've always been a big fan of Mike Evans, and I think the Bucs. Yeah, I've picked the Bucs purely because. Did I say that out loud? I think the Bucs have a lot of weapons there that the Eagles are going to have to deal with. Dan, sorry, jump the gun.
And Ross, is there going to be anybody on the defensive side of the ball that will outshine Anton Winfield in this game?
I'd like to think maybe someone like Devin White or Jamal Dean's not been at it, but we've got the third best red zone defense in the league. We've got scoring defense for sixth, tied sixth. So I think Winfield's the obvious choice. I kind of see past him. It's going to be it could be a slog.
Okay, guys, that's the rundown of the game's done. So we're going to move on to the predictions. So basically, what we're going to do is we're going to use the NFL Super Bowl, right? Super Bowl challenge. Sorry, I should have worded that right. So anybody that's watching or listening, go to NFL.com, go to the Super Bowl challenge, fill out your bracket for the rest of the playoffs, and get it shared with the crew, and we'll share them on our socials with anybody that sends them in. So, guys, we're going to go. Russell explained to you. We're going to go in our normal rest in one decision. So basically, one word answers who's going to win the game, clockwise direction, and when we get to the end, I'll pick the team on the Super Bowl picker and see who goes through it the next round. All right. So first up, we're going to go. So Browns at the Texans. Smudger.
Texans.
Ross.
Texans.
Studs.
Texans.
I'm going Texans as well. Texans are getting the curse. So Texans are through. Chiefs against the Dolphins. Smudger.
Chiefs for me.
Ross.
Dolphins.
Studs.
I don't think you need to ask me. I'm obviously going Chiefs.
I'm going to go Chiefs purely weather-based. I think that's going to be a massive difference. I think that I'm going to go Chiefs as well.
See, just on that very quickly, can you just imagine how hard Pacheco runs in a normal game? He's actually building up to a snow game because he knows he'll need to run harder. So he's going to even look rapid in the snow.
Steelers at Bills, Greg.
I'm trying to remember who I put in the crew predictor earlier on. I can't remember.
I'm just up my phone.
think I took Bills.
Ross.
Bills.
Studs.
I've went Bills. It's the TJ Watt factor.
Yeah.
I've went Bills as well. Okay. What's the order of the games? I'll try to do the order of the games we discussed. Packers at Cowboys, Craig.
Definitely Cowboys.
Ross,
I need the Packers, but I think it'll be Cowboys.
Studs.
Cowboys. It's all about them boys.
Certainly is. Rams at
That
Lions.
as well.
Rams at Lions.
I'm going Rams.
Ross.
I think Dan Campbell might get it wrong. I'm going Rams.
Studs.
The Bobby Lane curse continues. I'm going Rams.
To be fair, the Lions really have been the darlings of the crew this year. We have loved them. But I'm going to go with you guys. I'm giving it the Rams a full house. I just feel momentum-wise, I don't know what it is. There's just something about this game that makes me think the Rams are going to win it. I don't know what my logic is.
Yep, same.
Eagles at Bucks, Craig.
I've gone Bucks. I think Eagles are just too inconsistent. So Bucks for me.
Ross, there's no point asking you.
I'm optimistically saying Bucks.
To be fair, I done this earlier in the season with Scud and he went against the Pats, I remember that. But can't blame him, to be fair.
Same. If you watch the Pats this year.
For me, just now, purely on the optimism of people making it, I have went Eagles, but that I could, depending on what happens and the lead up to the game and who's in and who's out, I think if AJ Brown's out, I think I may actually change to the Bucks. I think AJ Brown's going to be key.
I
Bucks
think
with an asterisk. We like an asterisk.
He did not practice. He did not practice, so they do have till Monday, but I can't see AJ Brown playing.
I'm actually going to, this decision I've made with my head and not my heart, which was for obvious reasons. I'm going to go the Bucks as well. I think the fact this Eagles and maybe a Cowboys fan doesn't come into this decision, I think the Bucks are going to win this. I just think the Eagles are just so inconsistent. They're all over the shop. They can't get consistency. They can't play well. They've lost 5 of the last 6, and the only game they won was the Eagles with Tommy DeVito at the link. I don't know what's happened to the Eagles, but it's so much so that there's chat about is Nick Sirianni on his way out the door. Do you know, from a team that dominated last season to now being like head coaches on a hot seat, it's some turnaround. It's crazy. Just a bit of news that's popped up. It's not going to make a difference to our predictions based on this, but Jair Alexander rolled his ankle in our jog through practice today. He's now doubtful.
Oh.
He stood on another player's foot and rolled his ankle.
Ouch.
Was that him getting out for the coin toss at practice?
Excellent. I love that one. Right, guys, our predictions are in. We're not going to get any great detail, but based on the predictions that we've just made, I'm just going to run through the divisional playoff fixtures that we have just predicted. So in the AFC, you're going to have the Texans travelling to the Ravens. We're going to have the Chiefs travelling to the Buffalo Bills. In the NFC, you have the Rams going to the 49ers and the Bucks going to the Cowboys. That's what we've predicted tonight is going to happen. That's a good set of divisional games, isn't it?
Nice.
Seems like a very straightforward NFC side if that's the divisional games.
Well, you think so, but as you say, it can happen in the playoffs. Yeah, I mean, that's good. That's excellent. Well, guys, that's been great tonight. It's been a good bit of chat tonight. I love the Thursdays. I say this every time. I love the Thursdays because we've got a wee bit of creative license on a Thursday night. And a Monday or a Tuesday, we need to talk about the games that have just happened. But a Thursday, we can kind of do what we want and talk about what we want because the games haven't happened yet and it's all up to us to make these predictions. And a lot of time we get them right, but every now and again, we get something a wee bit right. It's been a pleasure as always, guys. Everybody's been listening and watching tonight. Like I say, get involved, get your Super Bowl challenges filled in, get them across to us. Let's see what your predictions are. I think every one of us that have teams in the playoffs have obviously went all the way to Super Bowl and our teams are winning it. Even Brian with his Cleveland Browns.
Wacko for Flacco in the chat.
So get involved. Let us know what's happening. Anything you want the crew to discuss. The guys will be here Monday or Tuesday to review the Wildcard weekend. So make sure you tune into that because I got a feeling there's going to be some really interesting stories coming out of this weekend. Maybe a wee shock, maybe something a bit unpredicted to happen. So, Smudger, thanks for joining us tonight.
Pleasure, as always.
Excellent. Studs, good to have you on a Thursday again.
As always, good fun, guys. Really enjoyed it.
And Ross, thanks for joining us tonight. It's been great having you on the chat about the Bucks. We like to get folk on it. Our teams aren't that well covered within the crew, and the Bucks are definitely one of the teams that we've maybe missed a bit of coverage on this year because they have done well compared to what we were probably predicting. We all predicted that both South divisions, the NFC and the AFC, were going to be absolute dumpster fires. And to be fair, we probably weren't that wrong to go with it.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Everybody, thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning in. And the guys will catch you on the preview crew at the start of next week.